Welcome to episode 77 of the Broadway Shuffle. We've got Clayton and Zyler here tonight. I am Brennan. If this is your first time listening, whether on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple, would you do us a favor and hit that subscribe button if you like the show? We appreciate you helping us joining the fastest growing community of Red Raiders. So tonight on the show, we're going to get into something that we've looked forward to talking about for a while, and that is NIL. Obviously, Texas Tech has made huge news in the portal over the winter and spring months, building the #1 portal class in the country for football. So Clayton and Z, I know we have a lot to get into. We're going to do some fun questions, some hypothetical questions as well here later on in the show. But NIL has taken not only the nation by storm, but specifically Lubbock, Texas over the last 3 or 4 months. It's been pretty exciting to kind of see what this opportunity has built for Texas Tech in the football and basketball program moving forward. So Clay, I just want to get right to it with you. Are you shocked that Texas Tech has kind of built the #1 portal class in football and has owned NIL, really not just in football, but also with JT Toppin in basketball, like that we are here, like Texas Tech is at the forefront of a national debate?
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised at the extent of the NIL commitment from tech boosters. It definitely wouldn't have shocked me if you told me that we were like top 15, top 20 in NIL, or like towards the upper half of the Big 12. But to see us literally put together the best portal class of all time, and then like you said, like bring back probably the preseason Wooden Award favorite in basketball, along with some other multi-million-dollar pieces. It's been insane. It's so funny thinking about like where we've come from, like the Terrence Shannon getting like a meal at whatever it was, West Table named after him, to like having the #1 football portal class of all time. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I'm not surprised that like the tech boosters are committed to funding programs and trying to get success, but I am surprised at like the level of that commitment.
Yeah, Z, and it brings a question up, like, how did Texas Tech get here? Like, how did Texas Tech go from middle of the pack Big 12 to we're going to change the way we look at college athletics and honestly be a steward of paying players?
I think you got to go back. So NIL started with a court injunction in 2021. So that's when NIL, name, image, and likeness, became a thing. It was kind of off to the races, Wild West. And what it really allowed people to do is not lose their amateurism status if they received payment for a deal related to their name, image, and likeness. So my face goes on a box of Wheaties. I don't lose my amateur status. I can't play college sports anymore. Looking back, it now seems insane to think that somebody could get a deal like that and they couldn't play college sports. But when that started, you were always kind of on the forefront. I remember Cody was talking about that. We had a plan immediately, and I think that's where truly alignment in your administration has always been talked about, an important feature. And having Skuvanek and Hokut, who have been in your university for 8-10 plus years at that point, really aligned. Now 2021 was the Matt Wells year. That was the final year for him, so he gets canned that fall, and then you put together a class. But from that point on, you have always been at the forefront. The Matador Club was one of the first collectives that was announced. If y'all remember, I believe it was in 2023, they announced that every player on the roster was getting $25,000, and that was a humongous deal at the time. It was groundbreaking. And now that total payment probably secures you like a 5-star high school player. And that was what you were paying your entire roster like 2 or 3 years ago. So that's one of the areas where I think Tech's been really good at being on the forefront of, hey, what's happening, what's going on, and making sure that we lead instead of, coming from behind. I read an article this past week on Stanford and their GM, Andrew Luck, and how they're trying to play catch up. And it's like, they didn't even have a collective until, a year and a half ago. And it's just been really impressive. And I think what we've done really well is be a first mover. Maybe we don't do it the best, and maybe we don't always have the most money, but we're going to be really innovative and be out in front of everybody else. And that's where I think we did a really good job.
But it feels like you've had I know you don't have more money coming in than Texas OU, Texas A&M, right? Sure. You're not there, but with what Cody and Womble and some of these other guys did, at least they were like, we're going to pretend we're them for a season. Like we're gonna say we're gonna put the money up to get the #1 portal class of all time, like Clayton said. So it wasn't necessarily. It felt like you were a big boy. This was like the first time it really felt like you weren't a little brother. Like you were you're getting the guys that Texas and Texas A&M and OU and even some SEC schools prior to them were getting, and they're now in your football building. Like I didn't really ever expect something like this to happen in Lubbock.
Something that you mentioned too, and I think it's important for us to note, Clayton mentioned the number one portal class of all time. If you go off On3's, transfer portal rankings, we're the first class to ever receive 100 grade. The best classes previously were like 70s. So you not only had the number one class of all time, you absolutely demolished it. It wasn't like you barely eked it out. Unbelievable class. Something that's truly never been done. I think you added 13 four-star prospects to your roster, and the Big 12 outside of you added 17 cumulatively. Each team added around one player. You added 13 four-star players to your roster. So unbelievable talent churn for the football team this past portal session.
Yeah, Clay, do you feel like we should have expected this type of commitment? Like, was it years in the making? Because I'm thinking back to when we were students in 2019 and 2020, and I didn't think about like Cody Campbell, or I know who Dusty Womble was because of the basketball stuff, but it's like I wasn't expecting these guys to just pour money in to help build rosters that could compete on a national level. Like, did you see this coming? Did we know, I guess, that Tech was going to start trying to do this like in 2018, 2019, or was this hey, this is happening, let's just do it, 2023, we're running with it?
I definitely didn't know, but I think it was definitely incredible foresight from like all the people you mentioned, plus the university, especially in the football transfer window. Just knowing that like this was the last time that you can truly just pay for play, just offer guys, a bunch of money to come to your university, and they took advantage. And there was a lot of planning that went into that ahead of time. And I don't think that basically, like, I don't think there's other schools that couldn't have done the same thing had they just had the idea and the organization with the boosters to say, like, this is our one shot to put ourselves on the level of the SEC. But I think, like, Tech gets credit for having that vision, knowing that, like, the House settlement was coming up this summer and then putting that plan into place. But, I think if Baylor, for instance, had that same plan, I don't think they would come up with the money that we spent this offseason, but they definitely could have come up with something that would, come close.
Yeah. One of the more interesting aspects, thinking about NIL in the Big 12 is just what it's done negatively for certain programs. And we've briefly mentioned this before, but you think about stalwarts of the Big 12 conference, you think Kansas State, Iowa State recently, but then really Oklahoma State, the third best program behind, maybe even second best program behind OU for the last 10 years. They've just completely fallen off a cliff since NIL became a thing. Now, I know they made the Big 12 championship. What was that, in 2022? And you've obviously never done that. But, since then, it's just been a disaster for that roster. And so, it kind of gives and it takes. Some teams definitely were not ready. And you're fortunate that you were one of the teams that was.
Yeah, and you're seeing it now too, just with where the player empowerment era of college football, we've kind of entered that, right? We've seen it with the Nico Imalavala situation at Tennessee, who's now at UCLA. And we haven't seen that yet at Tech, but I am curious. With revenue sharing coming in and with maybe the change and all of that, do you feel like player holdouts are going to become more of a thing in college football, or are we gonna nip this before it gets out of hand? They didn't do that with NIL and payment. So it's like, are we kind of thinking more players like if Baron Morton was like, hey, pay me $2 million instead of $1 million, and you're in a holdout phase. Do we think like that's going to become a thing and that Tech is going to have to, figure out a way like to, I guess, build the contracts that don't allow players to do that? Like that's one thing I don't know what to think about that in college. We see it in pro, but I don't know if I like that in college.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's so strange because NIL deals are still name, image, and likeness. It's not like a performance thing. It's not contract. You're not bound to, hey, you have to play, maybe you could, but they're still not employment contracts. They're still just like, hey, we can use your name, image, and likeness. How do you structure those things to where people, and, if you believe some of the rumors, you already dealt with one of those on one of your revenue sports this past year, where, somebody potentially held out for money to play in a certain game. Now we're not going to spread who that was. If you want to read about that, you can you can do a Google search and figure out who we're talking about. But I just think there's no way you're not going to see that. You already saw it with Tennessee. I think we're going to deal with it at some point. I think our staff, though, has been really good about if something like that does happen, we're not going to know about it until well after it's already occurred.
Yeah, I feel like name, image, and likeness, it shouldn't even be that anymore. Like that just seems like a phrase that doesn't need to be said. It's not
pay for
that.
play. That's all it is.
It's pay for play. You're not getting a Caniac or a Canes, hey, come to Canes on University Baron and we'll pay you $500 to use your name in an ad. Like that's not what's happening here. That's what name, image, and likeness was for. This has gone beyond that. It's something I don't think the NCAA or even the schools really anticipated until we got here, and they were like, "Oh, we're allowed to do this? Like we can just throw money at these guys now?" And it just kind of happened. I mean, President Skubanek was like, "This is the Wild West. Like, there's nothing going on right now to stop what's happening. There's no regulations to stop what's happening right now."
And I think where teams get really frustrated, you love retention and things like that, but it's when teams come in and tamper with your players and get them into the portal and pay them that way. I get that. Then that's frustrating. And it's, really tongue in cheek because we did that very clearly with a bunch of players this year. Or you had identified guys when they got, that's what the official word is going to be, that you identified players. And if they did enter the portal, you were going to be aggressive in contacting them, quote unquote. But that's where I think coaches get really frustrated because you have to constantly be recruiting your roster and making sure that there's not backdoor offers coming in after the spring. Like, some Big 12 examples, like Justin Kirkland just left Oklahoma State to go to BYU. Keanu Tanuvasa, Utah's best defensive lineman, left in the spring to go to BYU. You saw two BYU players. One went to Miami and one went to somewhere else. I can't remember where Harrison Taggart's going. And then you saw Houston, AJ Halsey and Jeremiah Wilson, both right after spring ball, boom, in the portal. They're both going to Miami, Florida State. They're announced like 2 or 3 days later. It's like, that's where I think coaches get really frustrated. You keep that guy through the spring, and then all of a sudden the portal window opens and bam, he's gone. And it's man.
And how do you protect the coaches there? Like, if you're out recruiting, if you bring guys in, if you're trying to build a program still, and you're getting tampered with, the guys are getting DM'd, they're getting offers, they might send a picture of a brand new Mercedes with a with a new house link and like, hey, this is yours if you come to Miami. Like that stuff's happening. And it's in a way it's always kind of happened. But, now it's, I don't know if I brought this up the story, but there was a 5-star receiver at my high school. Did I tell you all this? That he committed to Baylor. I won't say his name. But you can figure this out as well. A lot of Google search. You can figure out anything on Google now, right? Z. But he shows up to school his senior year with like a brand new G-Wagon. 20, his senior year before he's going off to Baylor. And it's like, dude, where'd you get that car? And like this was happening before the NIL was allowed. It just wasn't allowed. And they still kind of got away with it. So Clay, I just don't know like where Texas Tech goes, from this moment, because I wanted to ask this as well, too. Like, does this hurt or help Texas Tech on a national level? Like, is it good publicity until it's not? Is this going to be? Are we going to be like the joke if we go 8-4? Like, do you feel like in the long run, the national attention on this will help or hurt your long-term future? I don't know, but like it's.
I think I'm strong help.
Yeah, okay, so there's really no negatives to this for Texas Tech.
Oh no, there's definitely trade-offs. I mean, there's going to be, if you do win big, everybody's going to be like, well, you bought a roster, blah 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 blah. They don't develop players, all of those different things, and maybe some of those things are true. I've heard from and these are not people connected or giving money, so don't take this, but a big part of this push in getting this national publicity is when the next round of realignment starts, in 4 or 5 years, making sure that you are thought of as a serious football program. You have not been able to put forth serious results on the field. If you can show that you're serious about spending money, one, with your facility upgrades, South End Zone, $235 million, South End Zone and practice facility, signing the best portal class of all time, those signal to Big Ten, SEC power brokers that this is a serious football program. And once again, the ultimate goal is to win a bunch of games. That's the best way to do it. But it's about sending a message, to quote Heath Ledger.
Rip, man. What a legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like, this is almost not only an investment in your immediate future, but an investment in a potential long-term play on realignment. Could you get in the SEC in a couple years if the Big 12 dissolves? I know your Mark and all the Big 12 schools would love to keep this as a power conference, but it is something you have to consider, Clay, that this might not be, like forever. The Big 12. I mean, we don't know what college athletics will look like in 2 years. We don't even know what it'll look like once revenue sharing starts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do agree that it's a positive for tech. I don't know how you couldn't say that, considering like what we've done since the NIL era has begun in both revenue sports. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I agree. Your instance where like if we spend all this money then we go 8-4, what would you say is better for the university, like us spending all this money and then going 8-4, or us just like flying completely under the radar, not doing any big NIL splashes and then going 8-4? Or is it a wash?
I think it's better to have the attention. I'll take the publicity.
Yeah, I mean,
I to at least know that we have the money, like if we're going to get the same record.
Right.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Like, I think it was just a question of, in the long run, if you don't have the success that you paid for, it's like if the Dodgers don't make the playoffs, but they spend all this money, it's like, oh my gosh, like what went wrong with the Dodgers? It's like you're spending all this money. If you don't make the Big 12 championship, you're going to be the laughing stock of the conference, and even more national media attention will be like, man, you had you paid for all this stuff and Texas Tech still couldn't do it. Like, it just puts a bigger target on your back, which could be a negative. But the positive is you've got better players in the room to make sure it doesn't happen. So
yeah, exactly.
I would rather take
ideally.
That.
That's ideally.
You would think that. Yeah. Z, how would revenue sharing like change the future of the Big 12 with realignment? Are you feeling comfortable? And maybe give a 30-second spiel again on like what the revenue agreement would mean and is going to look like when that happens.
Yeah, so it's super, super basic. All that you really need to know is that NIL previously had to be paid through collectives, so somebody outside of the organization, a 501c3 charity. Now, with house revenue sharing, the big thing is back pay. So if you're an NCAA athlete, between a certain amount of years, you're getting paid for damages. But now schools can pay student athletes directly and not have to do it through a collective. So theoretically, the hot dogs and snacks that you buy at the concession stand could be funding the NIL is the way that you would think, or the revenue sharing program. So that's really the big difference. Now, what they're looking to do is cap total spending, because that's what everybody's concerned with, is the massive growth in total dollars spent on roster construction. So they're looking to cap total expenditures on college athletics as far as athlete revenue sharing at $20.5 million. Is that going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. It's believed that all Big 12 schools have opted into the revenue sharing agreement. You can opt out of that if you don't want to pay athletes or do back pay or do different things, but it's kind of a huge black eye or black mark for you. I think Tech's well positioned to handle that. When Skuvanek talked and he said, the university is going to help with that. Previously, you did not have almost any university subsidies for your student athletes. It was funded almost directly by the athletic department. You were one of the few programs in the Big 12 that was doing that. So you're positioned strongly there, as opposed to programs like Houston, who are majorly subsidizing their athletic program already, and now they're going to be tacked on a $20.5 million bill each year to pay athletes. They're going to be in a much worse spot than schools that have been fiscally responsible like you have handling this stuff. So I think you're well positioned to be consistently top 6 in revenue sharing in the Big 12. I would say top 3, but I think schools like BYU, and then you never know with the private schools in Kansas what could happen there. So that's kind of where I see you in that pecking order.
Which would mean that if a realignment was going to take place and you are one of the top revenue sharing schools in the Big 12, you would be highly sought after as a potential new university to the SEC, Big 10, maybe ACC, whatever it would look like.
Yeah, and the thing that you're also looking at is you can, if you have to pull, let's just say in a worst case scenario, you have to pull an SMU and say, hey, we won't take any media rights distribution. because that's a huge part of an athletic department's budget is what you get from ESPN, Fox, and whoever's one of your media partners. You're much more well positioned to maybe you're not going to come in, if this is all hypotheticals. I'm not saying an SEC or Big Ten invite is imminent. Don't hear me say that. You are much more well positioned to handle the financial burden if something like a quarter share or a half share or something like that comes in than some of your other Big 12 counterparts. And additionally, your athletic department's been consistently valued at a top 30, sometimes even top 25 value in the conference. So you're a valuable media property for them. So you'll be well positioned. It's just going to be how do the chips fall, man. It's definitely not a guarantee. You don't know if schools point to prior athletic success. You're not going to be as well positioned on the football side. Kansas State, Baylor, almost all the Big 12 schools, 4 or 5 of the Big 12 schools can say, yeah, we've done much more with our football program than Tech has. You have the potential to do a lot more. You just haven't shown it yet.
Interesting. It's going to be wild, dude. I don't know if y'all saw this, but Donald Trump gave a commencement speech at the University of Alabama this last couple of days, and he and Saban, apparently, I was reading this on CBS Sports, met and sat down, and Saban was talking to him about NIL and college football, and this is obviously going through potential Congress and the House settlement and all that. But Trump, it was said, and I mean, you never know like what he actually is going to sign and do, but that he's considering an executive order on NIL, and I don't know what that would do to shape and change things either. And there would still probably have to go through Congress if he did that. But Clay, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Like here we are in college athletics, and like the president's considering an executive order on the situation.
On player compensation.
On player compensation. It's just kind of wild. Like are we really here? Like go ahead.
It's the NCAA's own fault for not allowing kids to make any money to like sell an autograph, to do any commercial, like local commercials for this long, and then opening it up all at one time with the transfer, like unlimited transfers, the realignment stuff happening. Everyone's just trying to, spend as much as they can. So it's their own fault that they weren't prepared for this. Like, even if they were going to wait until now, they had no preparation for what was going to happen.
And it didn't even start because the NCAA said so. It was a court ruling. So it was just like, oh, well, all right. Well, we're not ready for this.
Yeah.
The NCAA has got to be it's got to be the worst. Yeah. The worst run
sporting organization
ever.
It's awful.
Yeah.
The problem with the NCAA, and everybody wants to rail on the NCAA for the way that they handle football, and that's 90% of the revenue that is generated for athletic departments. The problem that you'll run into with potential, Title IX and stuff like that is that they run 100 other sports across these institutions where they actually do a decent job. Like softball, for example. There's nothing wrong with softball and the way that college baseball set up or things like that. It's just the way that they've handled football and to some extent basketball that's been really, really upsetting. But you don't want to see the NCAA completely go away, because the intercollegiate athletics program, this is real selfishly, that's how you build all your Olympic teams and different things like that. So some of the stuff they do on that side is really good. The way that they've handled legal challenges is completely, it's atrocious. Charlie Baker has done nothing to do anything here. It's just, I don't even know what he does.
Yeah.
And I have no clue how like an executive order on NIL would work unless they just outlaw it completely again, which I don't think is going to happen. But like, say
how would it be constitutional?
Exactly. Like he's getting paid like $100K to do a car dealership commercial. Are they going to say like, no, you're actually not worth that much. You're worth 5,000. Like how's
exactly.
That gonna work?
It would be like you going to a job and the government says, no, you actually can't make that much. You're not worth that. You need to get paid less. Like, who is going to be okay with that?
Determine fair market value, but if someone's willing to pay me, then that is the fair market value.
Exactly. It's going to make no sense. Well, I don't expect House revenue to change anything about what people are getting paid, except allowing the schools to front some of that cost. I think that's the only thing that's going to change. Nobody's adhering to that cap.
Okay, well, this brings up a great question, and I'll pose it to you both, and then I'll answer. But how would you fix the NIL? What if Zyler, if you're the I don't know, the circuit judge or the president of the NCAA or whoever gets to make the decision, how would you form the new NIL? What would be the regulations and rules under Zyler's reign?
You have to be situated in Lubbock County in order to pay NIL deals. All of the other ones are going to be illegal. That would be
That's a
executive
great
order
idea.
number one. No, it truly, and I need to make sure I don't say anything that's inappropriate, but and I hate organizations like this, but like it almost needs to be collectively bargained where it's like the athletes in football and basketball are a group, and they collectively bargain. I think that works pretty well in sports. It's just you would have to get some sort of sign off between institutions in the Big Ten and the SEC and the Big 12, and like, are they all one group, or do the ACC athletes group together? Like, how does that all work? And then what about the 90% of Division I athletes that play football that aren't in the Big 10, SEC, Big 12, AC? There's a ton. There's 300 of these programs. How would that work? I think there's just a ton. The amateurism status is just incredibly important to the NCAA, and until that's removed, you're just going to have a really hard time enforcing any sort of contracts written in the way that most professional sports contracts are written, that are duration and pay and bonuses that are legally enforceable, where you can't leave. Because if you think about it, man, these kids are all student athletes. There's technically students. What is the argument from restricting a kid from going to, I don't really like it at Miami anymore, I would like to go to school at Florida State next semester? Why should you be able to restrict a kid from doing that? That's fundamentally the argument that the NCAA keeps getting hit with, and they don't have a good answer for that question.
Well, but I think now you should restrict the kid from doing that. Like, I think that if I'm a 5-star and I want to sign a 2-year contract with Texas Tech to play football, like, I have to sign that. And if I want to leave, like, I have to pay the buyout, or the school has to pay the buyout of my NIL. Like, I feel like
you could structure an NIL deal, but like a school can't pay that. Do that.
School, yeah, I get what you're saying. But like, you almost need to remove the amateurism. Like, let's stop playing pretend that these guys are student athletes, anyways. Like, they're not student athletes. These guys are paid millions of dollars to play sports, just like you are in the NFL and the MLB. I mean, I know baseball players aren't making millions, but like, let's not pretend these kids are focused on school.
The problem, and this is where it's tough, is you're going to be making rules for the 30, 40 programs that are paying kids serious money in football. And you're going to make these weird rules that don't really make sense to anybody else. Like at Abilene Christian or Angelo State, all of these kids that are technically college athletes, like, none of these rules apply to them. And you're going to be making all of these different rules that change the fundamental basis of how intercollegiate athletics works. And it's going to screw like 98% of college athletes in order to make sure that the fans of 2% of the programs are like, Daxton Miles can't transfer to other program because I hate it. And I know it's more complicated than that, but thinking about 98% of athletes, it's probably 99% of athletes don't even have a true NIL deal. None of them do. They're kids that go to school and they play football.
Yeah. Well, Clay, what would you do then?
I mean, I feel like Zyler just laid out all the reasons that my idea would not work, but I do feel like if these two steps were taken, it would reel in the NIL incredibly. But it would be bring back the one free transfer. After that, you have to sit out a year, and you cannot make money in your first year at a new school unless it's your freshman year.
That's actually, if that could be enforced, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would take away tampering, because you're going to promise a kid that you'll pay him $1 million 2 years from now, and that would put the focus back on high school recruiting and reduce the transfer portal from what it is now.
Yeah. And the thing that's tough for schools is just they have no idea. Those rules may be enforced next year, and it's like, oh crap! Like, I loaded up on the transfer portal, I have no high schoolers on my roster. Like, you may have been banking on the transfer portal building out a roster.
Well, and Z, I mean, you also bring up a good point, because we get so focused on basketball, football. What's this top recruit doing? What's this guy doing? But we all Tech made news in softball, and paid Canada $1 million, and we look how that turned out. You're doing great. You just won the Big 12 championship, but 99% of other softball players aren't getting $1 million. What about volleyball? What about soccer? Where does Title IX come in on this? What do you do with women's sports versus men's sports? What do you do for track versus football? So that's a great point, that it isn't, not only is it just the big schools when it comes to the two sports of basketball and football versus little guys, it's also within the school. What do you do to fairly promote? And Texas Tech, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, did a great job with the Matador Club. and giving every athlete $25K to kind of equal it up. Like, hey, you're a student, we care about you, we're going to give you cash.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the government and house settlements and stuff, you got to think they're going to consider women's sports and tennis and
Totally.
men's golf and basketball versus football. And it's so there's so much to get into to figure out how
It's
do you
messy.
make this fair. It's not like you can't, even though I'm saying like you shouldn't make the kids be students, like they should just be employees of the university. At the same time, like there's no way to even judge, well, like how are they worthy of being your employee? Like how do you know that this guy is worth the 2-year contract at 18 years old, or that this girl is worth the soccer contract, whatever dollar sign that is? I don't know. Like it's just, there's so much unanswered questions, and we're all just kind of playing like we're just kind of out here enjoying it. Like we don't know what the heck's going on, and we don't even care as long as our team does well on the field. It's just kind of a bizarre place to be if you're in the college athletic decision-making job.
I mean, the only winners here are people that charge billable hours. You know, if you're working attorneys for the NCAA or some of these institutions, you're going to be just making absolute bank the next 3 to 7 years. That's just absolute boatloads of money. Because they have all of these conversations, but like way more intense and get paid for it.
Do you think that this podcast would help us get into law school easier at Tech? Like, do you feel like this would be our...
maybe this could be our entry. Like, I didn't take the LSAT, but look at my thoughts.
Give us 2 years. We can start billing pretty quick. Yeah, don't look at our grades. Please don't look at my grades. But, look at the podcast. It is so fascinating, though, to think, like, how this era will be remembered. Like, what... when, like, 10 years from now, what are we going to think of the new NIL, or like where we're at in college athletics? What will college athletics even be? If you had to kind of put on your, glasses, Z, and it's the year 2035, where do you think college athletics is going to be 10 years from now?
Man, I have okay. One thing I am semi-confident in is that there will be, if there's not a monster super league where 60 teams all get together and do some sort of huge, where you think of the Big Ten and the SEC like resorbing the best of the ACC and the Big 12 so they can avoid the antitrust stuff. I think there will be a reformation of some kind of the Pac-12. Like there's just not a power Western Conference league right now, and there should be. I think that will at some level get reformed, whether it's a division inside of a super league. That's one of my predictions I feel pretty confident in.
Okay.
Just the noise that UCLA and USC and Oregon are making about the travel stuff, that is not going to get quieter. And I feel pretty strongly that will get reformed at some point. But the Big Ten and the SEC will have problems if they try to separate themselves from the rest of if they try to leave the NCAA. They're going to get some antitrust stuff, and they're deathly afraid of that. That is something that could be extremely detrimental to them and what they are building. So I think they will work very hard to do what they have to do in adding or whatever it may be to avoid any sort of antitrust lawsuits. Because you think they're so powerful in college sports, but they represent 12 to 14, 16. Like there can be 36 senators from other states that get super pissed off about all of this. And you see that now, but what is the state of Arizona and the state of Colorado and the state, what do they end up getting really upset about if all of this stuff ends up coming to pass? So I really don't know, but my biggest take is that there will be a Western league that's reformed.
So it's almost like really we will just, or go ahead, Clay.
Sorry, I was going to say it would be really funny if like this Super League is formed and then basically all the conferences from like 2010 just reform within the Super League.
Perfect. It'd be great.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, so Z, what you're saying is it's going to go back to how it always should have been, where it's regional and it's back to rivalries, and everyone's like, wait, this whole money thing wasn't really worth it because Rutgers has got to go travel to Southern California to play a road volleyball game on a Tuesday. And that's like costing the university, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but like all in the name of realignment. It made sense.
That's what's been so annoying from Mick Cronin. I know he didn't have anything to do with like the UCLA's decision to join the Big Ten, but it's like, dude, no one forced you guys to join the conference.
You can leave still.
Yeah. It's like every road game he's going to complain about how hard it was to get there.
And I know for us in the South, like we would prefer it. Like we've talked about this, like, yeah, we got our butts kicked against Texas a lot, but we loved it. We all went to the UT games. We all got excited. It's regional. Like, give us regional rivalries. It's what we enjoy. There's juice. Like, when we talked about this, like, who's your biggest rival now if you're Tech?
It's one of those private schools, Baylor, TCU,
or
and
Baylor,
you wish it was Oklahoma State.
We don't even play this year.
Which we don't even play.
Yeah, which you don't get to play.
It's not like there's no protected rivalry. It's like, give me a break.
Yeah.
Like, so to your point, you think UCLA who's not in the Oregon State and Oregon? Like, it's like, dude, you think the state of Oregon doesn't care about that? They do.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me they don't care about
Bedlam.
that.
Bedlam. Oklahoma State and OU.
Oklahoma State, OU. Yeah. Like, come on. That's what college football is built on. Oh, you went to OU. Oh, you went to Oklahoma State. Oh, you went to Texas.
Yeah.
You went to Texas Tech. Like, that is what fandom is. But it's being run by guys that care about making millions. And I guess that's just the world, dude. It's all about money.
It's Greg
like,
Sankey.
At the end of the
It's
day,
domestic terrorism. That's what it is. Let's call it what it is.
It is. Let's just say it.
Let's just say it how it is. I'll say it to his face.
Oh man, could you imagine?
Sankey, come on the pod. I have something to tell you.
Sankey. Yeah. But I think in 2035, I mean, like, who knows if we're even here, but you just wonder, like, where this isn't going to sustain itself. It's either going to blow up, something's going to go terribly wrong, or like we're going to have to find some law and order. Like, there's a reason there's law and order. There's a reason there's stoplights. Someone's got to tell you to stop. And, like, you've got to have some control amidst the chaos. Right now, there's no control. It's all chaos. Like, Clayton, like, how do you kind of refocus this thing?
I do feel like it's going to break back into like whether it's like 2 super conferences and then 4 sub conferences within those. But like, Florida and OU are not going to sign up to just lose 6 to 7 games in football every single year just for money because they added all these powerhouses into their conference. Like, at some point, the schools that have been vying for this for money, I feel like are going to turn and like want to go the other direction. Now, the question is, like, kind of Zyler brought up, is like, is that within just like the Big Ten and the SEC and then sub conferences within that, or do schools actually leave the Big Ten and the SEC, which seems far-fetched considering how much more money they're making than like the Big 12 or the ACC. But I don't feel like this is sustainable, that Florida can play like 8 ridiculously tough football opponents every year and just be okay with it because they're making a lot of money.
Yeah, and it's like, what's that worth to the fans? Like, is going 6-6 worth it? Like, at what point is the market going to tell you, I don't want this anymore?
It's like, we're not making money off that.
Yeah.
Well, the alternative to them is go to the Big 12 and dominate. Like, I feel like their fans would hate that too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I would take domination.
Let's
OU, let's say for the next 10 years, they basically have their last football season. I think they would sign up in a heartbeat to go back to basically making the Big 12 championship every single year.
I think the scorn that Texas would pile upon them for not being in the SEC would be too much. I think they would still. I think right now, I know I love the Big 12 and death to the SEC. If the SEC offered you an invite, you would crawl 100 miles over broken glass to get there. Like, we would take it in a heartbeat. Right?
That is very true. Yes,
that's true.
I agree.
Yeah, that's just a fact.
And we would be worse than OU would be.
Oh, 100%. But what I'm saying is, like, after 5 years, would our fan base have the same sentiment? And I feel like that's going to happen to some of those schools.
Yeah, the only thing about that is there's so many teams that you can get the uneven sketch. Like, what if I don't know. You're right, but
is it scheduling? Like, is it a reformation of, hey, let's get everyone back in the regions, but hey, we can play a middle road game, like Texas Tech can play Florida in Georgia or something, and like kind of meet like in could you find like neutral site non-conference games for the first 3 games, and then everyone plays 9 conference games and gets back into that, or is it subdivisions, like you're in little pods and you have to win your pod to make the playoffs, and 24 teams make the playoffs now instead of 14, like whatever it is.
Sure.
Like, I feel like there's ways you could incorporate more regionality while still increasing fan engagement and bigger opponents playing each other in September. Like there's got to be some middle ground there where it's not 2 super conferences and it's not USC traveling to Florida or whatever it is.
I think is super, and this is like so like Twitter enclosed. Like this does not have the national media landscape's attention, but some system of promotion and relegation would truly be awesome. Where you had like a league of, let's say 30 teams, maybe even 32, something like the NFL, where the top 4 teams that split up into 16 and the top 4 teams make the playoff. But then below that, you had the second league of 32. And you had the top 8 teams from those go to a playoff, and the top 2 teams get promoted into the next league the next year, and the bottom 2 like that would be really fun. Where it's like, and I know that everybody would poo-poo on that bottom league, but that would still be, it'd still be kind of electric. Like working, there's always something to be working for, and that you could, I don't know, that would just be really interesting, and it's obviously really fun, and it works really well for the Premier League and allows certain programs to find their level, but also if you want to invest and really rise up, you're also given that opportunity. Like Wrexham, for example, they've won 3 straight promotions and they're 1 away from the Premier League, which is that would be kind of cool. That's just like such a niche Twitter idea, and there's no way that anybody would ever sign up for the opportunity to get demoted to a bad league.
Yeah. I like the idea though. But
yeah, nobody would sign up for that.
Yeah, what would be the funniest outcome? Like what if you're like, "Oh man, I would love to see this happen." Like is it OU gets demoted? Like what's the funniest outcome of potential NIL fallout?
Somehow the Super League forms, but you can't be a private institution and be in it. So SMU, Baylor, and TCU all get left behind.
After SMU, I can't even.
That's my
sentence. But
yeah, that would be my. I don't know. I can think of all the bad outcomes. It's hard for me to think of the funniest outcome. I'm just hoping that the outcome is a good one for Tech.
Yeah, you Clay, I mean, you feel like you've obviously positioned yourself well to ride out the current situation and then enter whatever happens with like a foot forward comparatively to being behind like some other schools that we've seen. But it is scary. I mean, especially being Texas Tech, like it's just a fact. Like you are not the biggest school in Texas. You're not the biggest brother in Texas, let alone in your region. Like you do have to kind of earn your way in. And you've done that in basketball, and you've done that at least in the last decade before this year, the last couple of years in baseball, and you've done that across other schools like sports, track, and et cetera. But you haven't done it in football, and that's what drives business. And that's what drives national media attention. And so it's like when you have to earn your way to that unless you are Texas or OU, which you're just not.
That's well said.
That's true. I mean, I think you have a lot going for you in terms of like donor commitment, fan support, facilities, NIL commitment, revenue sharing, location, being in Texas. But like there's no guarantee that the SEC even wants to expand if it were to come to that. And, Florida State and Clemson are going to be 1 and 2 on their list, most likely if they do. But I think if they look at the full Big 12, it's hard for me to envision other schools that would have a better shot at getting an invite into the SEC. Like, even though Oklahoma State has had far more success than Tech, just looking at where their program is right now, I don't feel like they're like more likely.
Are they worth more than Texas Tech?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think the one thing you would have to lick some boots, because the people in College Station in Austin would probably not be too keen on you joining, and I think the folks in Austin will have quite a bit of sway in the SEC office. They could seriously derail. I mean, just like the Pac-16. Like if you followed that whole saga, they derailed the whole Texas Tech, UT, who was it, Oklahoma State, and one other team. We were all going to the Pac-12. OU, yeah, we were all going to the Pac-12. And the Longhorns decided they needed the Longhorn Network, and so that didn't ever happen. So they have a lot of sway, and you would need them to be on your side, I think, to ever get an SEC invitation.
Now, would you guys? And this brings up a question. Would you guys like that? Like, let's say the old Pac-12 forms with you. Like, I'm not opposed to that. If you're bringing Oklahoma State, like, I think that'd be kind of fun. Like Oregon, the Utahs, the Arizonas, USC, like UCLA. Like, I would take that over the current Big 12 if you gave me those games.
I guess those games, but like still, there's like, and I mean, unless UT and Oklahoma State and OU are coming along, I don't really care about UCLA. Like it'd be fun to have them here, but like that doesn't that moves the needle just like UCF for me. Like I just don't.
Okay,
I don't
so
care.
they're not. Yeah, I just feel like I would rather take the West and the East. Is what I'm saying. Like I would rather have that than UCF.
I just hate playing West Coast basketball games. That's truly like a fan thing. The games always start so late.
Yeah. Now, I mean, timing would time zone would be different.
Not a business
time
thing.
zone.
Not a,
I'm just thinking like if that would have happened, like I wouldn't have been that opposed to it comparatively to maybe what we're seeing now. And you kind of have that. I mean, you've got Utah, BYU, Arizona State. Like you've got some of them.
Colorado.
You know, Colorado. But I mean, and you've got to play Oregon, and you're getting to play Oregon State in football this upcoming season. So you are kind of getting some of that West Coast regional, games. But I don't know. It's just it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, it's a fascinating discussion, and I promise you've got maybe. I mean, what is it, 2025? You've got 4 to 5 more years of this, and then it's going to all get blown open again. So it's keep your head on a swivel, man. It's going to be. It's going to change quickly. And the other thing, Brennan, I was going to talk about this. Think about 5 years ago in college football. Like, I don't even think the transfer portal really was a thing. Like, and you think about it now, like how integral it is to building a roster. NIL wasn't a thing 4 years ago. Just the way that college sports has changed so much in the last 2,000 days. Like, it's mind-boggling.
Wild
to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
wild.
just unprecedented changes.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when it's like we're gonna wake up in 2029 and be like, where are we? Like, what's going on in college?
And we'll talk. Be like, yeah, can you believe you used to not be able to trade players mid-season? Like, how crazy is that? Yeah,
right. That's what I'm talking about. Like, is that gonna happen? Like, hey, Baron Morton, like, we're shipping you to UCLA for $200,000 in an NIL package and Nico Imalabala or whatever.
Yeah.
And
it's
your
like 4-star high school player.
And your 4-star high school running back that's going to commit now to Texas Tech instead of UCLA. Yeah. Like, is that that would be hilarious? Like breaking news from Shams. You'd be looking at it like the Luka Doncic tweet. Like, this isn't real.
Yeah,
it will probably get there.
I mean, but if you would have said 6 years ago, it's like, you could just talk to people and pay them a massive amount of money to put them into this random portal where they can just come to your school and play football now. And it's like that was just totally legal. Where it's like now, if anybody got paid $1, it was like you got a show cause penalty and you were banned from the sport.
Remember when Jordan Addison went from Pitt to USC and people were like,
it was massive.
What? Like, this guy's going there for what? And it's just, and that's now every day that's happening. Federico, I don't know what A&M's paying him, but it's like, I'm gone. Now I'm at A&M. Probably for
it's even crazier in basketball. The portal's crazier in basketball. Like, you think about who was the last high school player that has meaningfully contributed to our roster outside of Christian Anderson?
Jemias Ramsey.
Jemias, probably.
Kevin,
he was here 1 year.
Kevin McCullough.
Kevin McCullough.
Shannon.
But you think about you don't even build your roster out of high school unless you're like 6 programs.
But that's now 3+ years ago, which was unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, you built recruits, like you recruited talent, and now it's like you don't even need it. I mean, why would you recruit talent? Look at you just go get older guys that are not NBA ready yet that want to keep making a living and build a great team in college. That's the way to do it.
Yep. Anyway,
it's honestly very short-sighted. I feel like I realize that people they're thinking is like, if you're not a top 20 high school player, then I have a better shot of just going and getting the best player off of like VCU, and he'll probably be better that next year than like the 25th ranked freshman. But if you could sustain like building through high school and just keeping them in your program, I feel like you could have a powerhouse.
It was like the Kansas model for 15 years.
Yeah.
Take a bunch of like really high 4-stars and keep them on your roster for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, NIL realignment, where Texas Tech falls in this, it's going to be just interesting to see the next 2 years, but it only all really matters if you build success on the field too, which is going to be the main thing we get to look out for here in a couple months. So that'll be, it's so interesting, man. I mean, we could talk about this for hours, and we'll probably have multiple episodes on this. I know Conrad's missing out on this one. He'll probably want to have his thoughts as well too. So we'll keep that discussion going, but let us know your thoughts in the comments too. What would you do to fix college football and fix college athletics, and how would you change NIL if you could? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. So this week in Texas Tech sports, Z, you saw, I don't know, were you at the facility or what were you doing watching?
Yeah,
did you sneak through a game? But you saw a guy working out there this week that was getting you pretty excited.
we were fortunate enough to take a tour of the South End Zone facility, and it was unbelievable, man. The donors and what they put into that. It was our second time seeing it, and it's just unbelievably impressive. Man, and they're putting new turf in. I mean, a lot of really neat stuff happening out there. The coolest sign that I saw was fall camp is less than 90 days away. So they're less than 3 months from starting that bad boy up, which is wild to think about. But yeah, man, just a really, really cool facility. It's unbelievably professional. You can't even believe you're in Lubbock when you're walking around there. It just doesn't feel like that should be something that's in the middle of West Texas.
Wild. But
incredibly impressed.
And you saw a guy just there working out that made you happy.
Will Hammond was out there getting some reps in. He was the only QB I saw in the room, but he was getting going. So QB1 of the future coming your way soon.
There you go.
Baron and Conrad are on a weekend getaway together. That's why Conrad's not here.
That's why Conrad couldn't make the Broadway Shuffle. Clay, you saw Ben Henshaw. You sent me a YouTube video of this kid from Australia. No new updates yet, but could be a potential guard for Texas Tech. Kid looked pretty icy, man. I liked his game, kind of like an Aussie Luka.
He's good, man. And it seems like Tech is in a good position. He's still going through the draft combine, but he's not super highly regarded in this year's draft. And I know that Tech and Florida were the two front runners for him, and most of his recruitment in Florida is likely, or I don't know if it's already been announced, but likely getting Desmond Claude, which pretty much fills up their roster. So if he does decide to enroll in school, I feel like Tech has a pretty good shot there, which would honestly, in my opinion, elevate this roster to like top 5, top 3 potentially going into next year.
Yeah, he's good. He'd be a great missing piece. I'm interested to see. I love the mixtape. If you have a chance, go look up Ben Henshaw's on YouTube. It's exciting to watch. If you could picture him in a Red Raider uniform.
We've been needing an ugly white guy on our team for a long time. He's the missing piece.
I tried when I was in school, but I for whatever reason, Beard didn't want me. Clay, also, I don't know if you know, we're going to be missing you here in a couple weeks. For those of you that don't know, Clayton's getting married on the 17th of May. So just wanted to shout you out on the podcast. And I don't know how many more episodes we got of you the rest of the month. So while you're here, King, just wanted to say congrats from the Broadway Shuffle and let everyone know that, you know, you were going to be taken soon. So sorry to all the ladies in the DMs that have been asking about you, but it's over for you, man.
It's over. Yeah, thank you, man. I'll be yearning for the Broadway Shuffle when I'm on the beaches of Cancun.
I'm sure.
I truly hope not.
Yeah, that would not be good. And if you got marriage advice for Clayton, please in the comments below, please let us know. Yeah, fire, and we could all use it for that matter, not just Clayton.
Maybe Mark Adams has something for me.
I'm sure Mark Adams would have. Make sure you listen to him on marriage advice for sure. That's a great joke. Z, you got Tech trivia to close us out this week, or what do you got for us?
Yeah. So I was looking at just the effects of NIL since they started. So if you go back and look at our high school recruiting classes from 2011 to 2021, and let me just fact check myself for here and make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn. Your class average from 2013 to 2020 was at 50. Your average high school class was 50th in the nation. From 2022 onward, so this could also be a Joey McGuire conversation. What do you think your high school classes have averaged? Not total players, but rank.
21.
I'm gonna guess. I was gonna say like 24.
You got to okay. Before you answer, you got to think that we had the 2022 class, the one that he had to hobble together. That's put in there. So.
Okay, I'll drop it. I mean, because the Micah Hudson signing obviously helped you quite a bit, I feel like, last year. So I'll go, 37 if 2022 was average?
Yeah, I'll say.
Clayton, what do you got?
I'll say 32.
Dude, both of y'all very close. 35. You've jumped at about 15 spots since NIL started.
Wow. I mean, that's great.
And that's with a 48 in there. So
yeah, not bad. I mean, it's clear Joey's obviously outside of the portal. I feel like we're not giving Joey enough credit for what he's been doing as well on the field. I know he's not necessarily hands-on, at least reported when it comes to NIL and what's really going on in terms of dollar signs, but he has obviously elevated your program to a level in the recruiting level too, just with guys building a program, he's still doing a great job of that too, which is
Yep.
great. You need that. So awesome, man. Well, that was a ton of fun. Well, we'll get into it more. I mean, I'm looking forward to these types of discussions over the off season as well. And we will, Z, before we get out of here too, I know you've got a couple of your Z summer series coming up. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
But you'll be doing some team previews and what teams, what we need to be looking out for when it, Arizona State, I know you've got on the docket, Arizona. Tell us a little bit about what we can look forward to that. And we'll be releasing those on the weekends up until football season.
Yeah, I'll do kind of a video primer explaining what we're doing, but I did last year just at least going through, and I'll write about 6,000 to 7,000 words on each team, and just kind of prep you for what they're going to be doing, what they brought back, what they brought in from the portal, what they lost, and I'll also be adding an interview with a beat reporter from each of those schools talking about, where this team's weak, where this team's strong, kind of doing a full comprehensive preview in about 20, 25 minutes, and then I'll do a 20, 25-minute session. So if you want 50 minutes on a team, you'll be able to listen to all of that for the Big 12 program. So really excited to do that. I think we'll drop our first one Friday. It just depends on if we get schedules aligned with our Arizona guy. So
awesome, man. We'll be on the lookout for that, and make sure you again, if you like this video, if you've been watching for a while and haven't hit that subscribe button, if you haven't shared it with friends and families and Red Raiders, make sure you do that so you never miss an episode. We'll be here every week, plus on the weekends or Fridays for Z's summer series, so you can get ready for football as we are less than 90 days away. So for Zyler and Clayton, I am Brennan, and we will see you guys next time on the Broadway Shuffle. Wreck 'em.